Logistics real estate is driving portfolio growth and not just sustaining it. Welcome to the Growthpoint View, the podcast where conversations that matter shape South Africa's built environment. I'm your host, Denise Mhlanga. Logistics real estate is one of South Africa's most strategic investment stories. It is the engine powering e-commerce, trade, and supply chain resilience. Today, we'll unpack what this means for the future of property, investment, and growth. To unpack the discussion, I'm joined by Neil Schloss, the Head of Asset Management for Growthpoint South Africa, Jason Reeves, the Asset Manager for Industrial and Logistics at Growthpoint South Africa, and Tobie, Krige, the Managing Director for Distribution at Adcock, Ingram. Gentlemen, welcome to the Growthpoint View.
Thank you.
Thanks, Denise.
Neil, logistics real estate is driving economic activity in the country and has become one of the strongest property performing sectors. What is driving the growth in this sector?
Well, I think it's worth pointing out that pretty much every item or every bit of merchandise is touched or has been touched by logistics at some point through the chain. It fuels the economy, it drives the economy, and it underpins economic activity. We provide space in order for these parts of the economic sector to function and to thrive. And it's been a good, solid, resilient asset class over the last couple of years for us to invest in.
As Growthpoint South Africa, you are a diversified you have a diversified portfolio in the group here in South Africa and internationally. What's the conviction and what gives you the confidence to keep putting money into this sector?
So you're right, we are diversified. We have investments in retail, industrial, and or retail, office, and logistics and industrial. We invest for the long term, and we look at value creation through total return for our shareholders. It is a sector that has been performing in terms of the fundamentals are there. So there is demand for space, there is price and price tension. There is a growing sector that requires space and new space and modern space, well located, specifically designed for the logistics sector. And you know, we like to play in that space. We focus on quality. We are moving to quality, as I think the entire sector is around logistics. And with that quality comes improved, better, more sustainable income, because you're dealing with better tenants or better clients and better users and occupiers of space with better governance. And altogether, the whole environment is just one of better quality.
Tobie, your career in logistics spans over 2 decades, and warehouses have changed quite dramatically in the past decade or so. What has changed most in your business operations in the past 3 to 5 years?
So interesting, you know, we're not immune in South Africa with all the challenges that we're facing. So starting from COVID, we had the 2 extreme challenges in logistics that you can have is the volume. So when COVID hit us, we needed to move quite a lot of volume because we're a pharmaceutical company. And 6 months later, when people started to realize what is needed to cure for the sickness, stock were bursting out of the scene, so we needed to get some additional storage. So those type of challenges that we faced in the past 5 years that we needed to manage. We had the riots in Durban, severe challenge for us to get emergency stock into the region. The floods, and then just the past month we had the immigrants issue that we needed to make sure that we get the stock to the positions and making sure that the roads are safe and the routes that we're taking to our customers.
Are some of those challenges still persist now or that you are facing within your operation?
No, it's been handled, and we sort of get the stock out on that. So yeah, but you know what's going to be next, and you know that's why we're in logistics. It's different challenges that we're facing every day.
Jason, let's bring you into the conversation and talk about the structural forces that create demand in this sector. What is it that you are creating? When we talk logistics, what are we talking about?
Denise, from our perspective, going back to COVID actually certainly increased the rise of e-commerce within South Africa. And with the rise of e-commerce, it's all about getting the product to the end user as quick as possible. So what that means is new buildings in well-located areas in terms of kind of distance to the highway so that they can get the product to the end user quicker. We had to make sure that the buildings were also built in nodes where the infrastructure was good, because we are spending lots of capital on expensive investments, so that had to work. And it was also, we had to find a node where there was a proper labor force as well. So all of these drivers were essential in ensuring that we had the right product in the right node, where we had labor and staff that could use the building. So those aspects are certainly driving the kind of the logistics build within the country.
And what role do vacancies play into all of this and rental growth into this demand?
With vacancies are certainly on the down, which is actually working in favor of Growthpoint, because as vacancies reduce, rentals are driven up. And when rentals are driven up, it allows for the construction of new builds, because that's the new base mark, the base mark rental. So certainly that has been very positive for Growthpoint, and we certainly see that trend going forward into the future as well.
What determines whether a location is viable for you to build a logistics warehouse?
As I mentioned previously, location, there's a multiple of factors. I think what we're looking at from a Growthpoint perspective is you look at the node and it has to work now, but it also has to work in the next 20 to 30 years' time, because obviously property is a long-term play. So more and more infrastructure within the node is certainly becoming the most important aspect. So that's, that is very, very important. But specifically as well from a logistics point of view, access to major highways is certainly important. When you look at the various kind of regional nodes across the country, Durban, the port is is very, very important. Being in zone 1 within Durban has its certain, the value adds. But more and more, we're also finding that aerotropolises are certainly important. So being close to major international airports as well as regional airports, we find that just assists with getting product off the plane and to our customers. So those are certainly the pull factors which we are looking at, and those are certainly guiding our decisions when deciding on locations going forward.
And Tobie, you also spoke about the importance of location. And when you think about your operations, how does location affect delivery times, operational cost within your business?
No, that's for sure. As Jason said, it's very important for us. Normal center of gravity exercises are needed to determine what is the right spot. You want to be as close as possible to your main customers, to provide the best service to them as quick as possible. And also, the whole drive where stockholding is so important for our customers, where they want to reduce their stockholding and put the onus on the suppliers to keep the stock. So you need to be in proximity, very close proximity from your main customers. So center of gravity are very important. And to add what Jason is saying is the services, water, electricity, those type of services is serious of importance. And then you need to look at the locations. Informal settlements becomes a hot topic also when you're looking at, especially after the 2021 riots. You need to look at those type of informal settlements. How far are they from your warehouse? Is there enough risk mitigation to protect the warehouse? And all of those type of stuff that you need to consider.
Have you perhaps from the July riots have one of those warehouses that's closer to the informal settlement in order to be closer to the people, or you are still exploring the idea?
For our future development is definitely one of the things that is taken into account.
Jason, you spoke about building for the future.
Yeah.
Let's unpack what makes a logistics facility fit for purpose and for the future, not just for the user of today, but of tomorrow.
From a Growthpoint perspective, we're almost playing in two different fields, and the two different fields are single tenanted buildings, and which is normally bespoke and developed for a client, or there are secure industrial parks. Same, but slightly different. So from a single tenanted building, it's normally 13 meters to the eaves, 5 to 7% office space, yards of about 50 meters deep, obviously ASIP compliant. And what we're trying to do is make that building as generic as possible. So when we get the tenant, they can be there for a lease length period, and hopefully they renew. But when they vacate, it's easy for the next tenant to take their place. But things have also changed, you know what I mean? Height is important. The loading of the floor is important. I think as we look at today's technology, the building's ability to take tech and to allow it to be a smart building, as well as sustainability, is also front of mind now. So the way we design in terms of sustainability, in terms of lighting, in terms of backup water, in terms of backup power, all of that stuff is obviously very, very important. But when we build the multi-parks, as I've said, security always paramount. The building sizes are not as big as the single tenanted buildings. We like buildings of probably 2.5 to 5,000 square meters. And that allows us flexibility within the park, but it also allows us to manage operating costs and provide our clients with kind of bespoke, cost-effective solutions that are flexible, and it allows them to grow within the park. As they grow and need more space, these parks allow them to grow. So those are kind of the two predominant kind of growth areas that we see at Growthpoint.
Okay, so are you developing both big boxes and small boxes?
At this point in time, we are. So in Pomona, we see that as kind of an e-commerce hub, and e-commerce buildings are normally the bigger buildings to allow for more stock inside. So in Pomona, we are kind of 90% of the way with our first foray into that, and we're very, very proud with our partners. Feenstra should be online in October. But we also have two developments that have been earmarked. One is in Cape Town at Ndlovu, which is just short of 40,000, which is 9 units between 3,500 and 5,000. And our second secure industrial park is in Durban, in Conubia, Tacoma Park, roughly the same size as our Cape Town development, just short of 40,000 squares. And the same makeup, units 2.5 to 5,000 squares, secure. Which we're very proud of.
It's worth noting that all three of the developments that Jason has spoken about are spec developments. We've commenced building those developments without tenants, but it just shows our belief and our confidence in the depth of the market, specifically in those areas. We're very particular about where we invest, provincially. In which metropolitans, and then the nodes within those metropolitan areas. So I think it is a vote of confidence to the sector from Growthpoint that we're doing those type of spec developments.
Perhaps you can talk to us, Neil, about how your portfolio has grown or evolved over the past 5 years, looking at your focus now purely on logistics and still have that industrial aspect of it.
Yeah. So I think it's worth noting that across Growthpoint and across the three sectors, we are continuously reviewing the portfolio makeup. And we're currently we're currently in the middle of a strategy where we're increasing the weighting of the logistics portfolio relative to the other sectors, being retail and offices. Again, it comes back to where we believe we're going to get the best bang for our buck, what's going to be the most resilient asset class, and what's going to perform best over the next couple of years. What we've seen specifically in the industrial and logistics, or logistics and industrial sector, is a move to quality, a reduction in the sheer number of the properties. I think in 2018 we were at about 225 buildings. We had about circa 130 properties now. We're about 690,000 square meters smaller in terms of just pure GLA, but the value of the portfolio has pretty much remained the same. And that talks to a better quality portfolio, a better value, and an improving value per square meter on the back of lower vacancies, higher rentals, better growth, and ultimately valuation growth. And throughout all of that, there's been an improvement in the quality of the tenants that we now deal with, and the covenant and the ability to grow with those tenants through the course of the whole journey.
And how do you think about long-term value creation when you are allocating capital to logistics?
We're looking well into the future, and Jason touched on some of that. We're looking at investment decisions based on a total return basis, and that takes into account, obviously, your yield plus your valuation growth. Valuation growth is only going to come from an increase in net income and rental income on a regular basis, and that will translate into valuation growth. We look at the type of building it is, where it's located. We're very focused on that. We look at how future-proof it is, how much capex it's going to require, how deep the market is in the particular areas that we are investing in. We've got to look at it from a medium to long-term point of view. Granted, every asset and every investment has an investment horizon. It may be different for different investors, and we also have to monitor when the right time is to exit those particular investments and recycle that capital that we have realized from that investment.
Tobie, Jason spoke about the importance of designing for now and designing for the future. What do you expect from a logistics facility based on your business and looking long term when you are growing? What are you looking at? And also when you are thinking about investing more in these facilities?
So Denise, if you take us back 10 years, what is the facility we typically used 10 years back and how it looks now? It's chalk and cheese, So just to give you an example of what have changed in the past 10 years and how that is also going to change in the future is we as Adcock are on a heavily path on compliance. Being one of the biggest players in South Africa distributing pharmaceuticals. 10 years back, you looked at a facility, natural sunlight coming into the building, we needed to block it off. We had airlock systems that we installed. Backup generators. Now all our facilities has got PV on the roof. We're busy looking at, right now as we speak, we're busy installing battery backup solutions. Not even generators anymore, we're going with batteries now. The other drive now from a compliance point of view is temperature control. In the past we invested in HVAC systems, and now we're upgrading our HVAC systems to not only just temperature control, but also humidity control. And that is a new thing that we're now installing in all our facilities. So the future, we're going to continue on that path. The environmental issues are becoming a bigger issue. We don't talk to any developers now if it's not about water harvesting solutions, if it's not battery and PV on the roof, those type of things. And now electrical vehicles. Electrical vehicles becomes a big topic now, and you need charging points. So more and more looking at the green box than ever before. That's going to continue and grow as we speak.
Sustainability is really becoming a big thing, and it's not just for Adcock, all of our clients. And it's not just from a compliance thing where they want to do good. There's certainly financial benefits for the guys. So it's definitely sustainability can be seen as, ticking that box, but there's definitely financial merit in doing that. And that's what we are finding across the board.
And how much of electric vehicles requirements influence the developments that you have? And for your requirements, Tobie, in your facilities?
So, Denise, we are piloting. We've got the last 3-4 years, we've piloted some electrical vehicles. At one of our Growthpoint facilities, we do have the electrical charging points. And we're charging them off from our PV system. There's some other bigger logistics companies that is heavily investing in electrical vehicles. So if we look at the electrical vehicles and the cost, how they came down, it's definitely going to play. There is some limitations, the distance that you travel and all of that. But I think it's going to be supported heavily with backup batteries. And batteries becomes cheaper and cheaper now. So I think that's going to be a solution in the future.
And what are some of the technologies that you are trialing within your facilities?
Definitely the electrical vehicles that we're piloting. And then in the box itself, as Jason was saying, Wi-Fi technologies with cameras and our RF technologies on our warehouse management system. All of that is just, we need it going forward.
Jason, you can add to that, but I also wanted to ask about robotics. Yeah. Are there robots roaming around this, picking up stuff and getting them dispatched? Or is it still all human at the moment?
I haven't per se seen any robots, Denise, to tell you the truth. Those are my buildings, but I know it's certainly a thing of the future. There's no two ways about it. And this comes back to when we're designing buildings now. We need to be aware of the future, and we have to make sure that our buildings are future-proofed, that they will be able to be Wi-Fi enabled, tech enabled, and have all of the technology within the facilities so that when robots do happen, our buildings are able to be utilized in that manner.
And that was the question that I was going to ask, how you are future-proofing your developments for the future, for future use.
Future-proofing now, Denise, it's almost like what were bells and whistles 5 years ago on our standard operating requirements. They have to come with PV on the roof. They have to come with backup water. They have to be as generic as possible. We're also finding that buildings now, you might be needing more electricity because when you've got clients that want to be charging their trucks and charging whatever electrical appliances there, we're certainly going to need more electricity. So we're finding that buildings need to be higher. Gone are the days where a 9 meter to the eaves building was standard. That's certainly 13 to 15 meters now. We're also future-proofing that the office ratios are certainly smaller, but when we need to build for users that are larger, we can adjust for that. Future-proofing means no yards of 30 meters anymore. 35 to 40 to 50 meters is the standard now. So it's what was a special requirement 5 years ago is certainly standard requirements now. And as Neil mentioned earlier, we believe in the country, so we have built quite a lot of buildings on spec. And when you build on spec, you have to make sure that you have all of these items in the building, because that's what our blue chip tenants will require.
So definitely I'm hearing that we are developing smarter buildings.
100%.
But how are you thinking about redeveloping and repurposing your old logistics buildings and industrial buildings? Are you redeveloping them, or are you just selling them off? What's cost effective?
So we have sold a lot of buildings in the last 3 years. I mean, it's, obviously through the natural asset management process, we've done that. But before we've sold, we look at the building, like we're looking at very regularly, are the bone structure, is it good? And can it be redeveloped? And I think what's most critical is the location good. So certainly if the location is good and there's an undersupply of good buildings in that node, then it's definitely we don't sell the building. And we have noted that if you take an older building and you spend some money redeveloping it, can definitely increase the lifespan of that property, but you can also increase the returns of that property. So definitely you've got to have buildings within the right node, and the bone structure must be good. And if you've got that, a brownfield development certainly adds value to our portfolio, and we have pulled that off successfully in 1 or 2 developments within Growthpoint's logistics portfolio.
The answer to that is both. We will sell buildings and we will redevelop. Plus, we add to that, we develop. We've got a trading and development division which actively and develops brand new product in the way that we want it developed to our clients and tenants' requirements, that is then incorporated into our portfolio. And that obviously is improving and adding to the quality and scaling up the portfolio on an ongoing basis. But just to touch on what Jason said, we're very clear on what our strategy is, across all three sectors. And within that strategy, we then evaluate each of the buildings each of the buildings to see and forecast what the future holds for those buildings and where we're going to get the best return and shareholder value, shareholder return for that investment or that capital allocation in those properties. So the answer is dependent on exactly each and every building.
In closing, I would like to ask each of you this question. What will define the future of South Africa's logistics?
I would start with efficiency. It's going to be an ongoing theme. The most service providers and the logistics guys who can provide the most efficient service of getting goods to market and to users, and that is going to be key and will lead the way. And then I think you've got to add to that the technology and the adaptability of that technology and the buildings' adaptability to that technology in order to facilitate that, I think is going to be key.
Denise, for us as Adcock Ingram, definitely the three pillars that we're building on in distribution is cost, service level and compliance. And I think that's going to remain the way that we're going to look at property going forward. And that's going to define our needs if we can answer those three questions.
We believe that e-commerce is certainly going to grow. So that I don't think is a trend that's going to die down. So it's all about having the buildings in the right nodes at the right price that can fulfill the requirements of the user, which are probably predominantly going to be e-commerce based. And it's making sure that you have a quality product that can last for a good investment period. That to me is going to be the most important aspects.
There you have it, folks. If there is one key takeaway from this discussion today, it's this. The success of logistics real estate is not just about location, but it's about building the right product faster and for a more connected future. Thank you to my guests, Neil, Jason, and Tobie, for sharing your insights, and to you, our listeners. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Growthpoint View.